faith, family, fun. Join the hangout. CFH.
Good morning and welcome to your weekly hangout spot right here on the Catholic Family Hangout with the Madinane family presented by myself, Leander Tema. We just started off this Saturday with Beautiful by Holvey, and it truly is a beautiful Saturday despite the cold weather. Of course, you are listening to Radio Veritas, the good news for a change, and you are either listening to us on the DSTV channel 870, the Radio Veritas app, or streaming us live at www.radioveritas.co.za. So today, of course, is the 11th of January, and unfortunately, it does mean that this is the last ever episode of the holiday program. Now, the holiday program, if you're new, if you've just joined in, I'm very sad that you've only caught it now, but if you missed out on any of it, you can catch up on it on our Spotify. You can search up Catholic Family Hangouts and you can listen to the podcast, which is a recap episode of every single episode we've had so far. But the holiday program has basically just been us taking a break from our typical schedule and our typical content, specifically focusing on everything holiday related. So we've discussed everything from Advent, Christmas, the Holy Family, the Christmas octave, the Feast of the Holy Family, even New Year's. And now we're wrapping up a little bit. We have a very great conversation, a very interesting one right now, as we're discussing back to school, results, the closing up of the holiday season, and kind of just getting back into reality. But of course, I am never alone. I'm always joined by the Madinane family. Unfortunately, Gabela was unable to join us for the finale, but I do have Tandoletu with me in studio. How are you doing this morning, Tandoletu?
Hey, I'm good, I'm good. I'm so happy to be here. Sad to be closing the holiday program off because honestly it was a journey. Like you've already mentioned the things we've spoken about and learned. But I'm also very excited because it then obviously means that we are into the new year. Ain't no holiday anymore. But I'm good. And yourself?
I'm doing wonderful, and I definitely agree with what you're saying there. It's a bit bittersweet, but this is why we have this topic today specifically, how to prepare about getting back into reality. But before we get into that, we'll be listening to Awesome God by Artwork Sounds. And welcome back. You are still tuned into the Catholic Family Hangout with the Madinane family presented by myself, Leander Tema. You are listening to Radio Veritas, the good news for a change, and you are either listening to us on the DSTV channel 870, the Radio Veritas app, or streaming us live at www.radioveritas.co.za. We just played you Awesome God by Artwork Sounds, and I feel like that kind of just reminds us of why we are here, right? Obviously, Catholic radio
Yeah.
station, we are always here because of the awesomeness of God. We're always here because of the love of God. And I think even just looking at this holiday program, obviously we are wrapping it up and it is coming to an end because the holiday season is coming to an end. But it reminds us of how much we've discussed, right? And how much we've
Mm.
learned throughout the season. And obviously, a lot of the conversations we've had are around religious topics because we wouldn't have the holiday season if it weren't for the Catholic religion. We wouldn't have Christmas. We wouldn't have all these celebrations that we have, Advent even. And I think, Tanulut, I just wanted to know from you, it's one of those things where obviously the holiday season is a bit of a blur because
Yeah.
it's Advent, it's Christmas, it's the end of school, it's December as well, and South Africa has such a strong party sort of festivity about December. But how are you
Yeah.
feeling now that we're wrapping up the holiday season?
Honestly and personally, I am, besides the constant migraine that I've had since literally January started, but I'm honestly feeling very good, and for someone in my grade or my age, I took December to completely reboot, like just reflect on the whole year. And that's when I realized that for most of the year, I had been on autopilot because of everything that had been happening around me. So December, unlike other students or some of my friends, they took it to kind of start the year that's following, or to revise on their work or whatever the case may be. But I just took it to reboot. So I'm actually very happy because you can't relax for a long time. But I'm kind of stoked that the holiday season has come to an end, and it's really time to make the 2025 is my year come true and actually come to fruition.
Yeah, no, I hear that. And I love the fact that you're mentioning that throughout the year you kind of run on autopilot. And I agree with that
Yeah.
heavily because I feel like as we were ending off 2024 and I was starting to like sit down and look at my vision boards for the year and look at like all of my plans for this year, I just thought
Mm.
back to how much had happened in 2024, right? I think it's important what you're mentioning, this whole idea that yes, it is a festive season, but it is also a season for you to kind of relax. And I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
people don't take the holiday season as that, right? We end off school, we end off work, we end off varsity, and we're kind of immediately thrown into this whole idea of Advent, right? Because obviously we are
Yeah.
Catholic. Some people don't even celebrate Advent properly. And then we go into this whole thing of Christmas. And Christmas, as we mentioned, is always something that isn't celebrated as Christmas. And even though it is the Christmas season, it's still important for you to still have your own personal time, right? To just rewind, relax, take time to cool down. But I feel as though a lot of people don't actually rest during the holiday
Mm.
season. If anything, my parents have always said, like, whenever we come back from a holiday, they feel like they need another holiday because you go away and you've got this itinerary of like 50 different things that you're doing. And the only
True.
time that people really sit down to reflect, I feel, is the week after Christmas leading towards New Year's. So I wanted to
Mm.
know from you a little bit more. Um, how does your like holiday relaxation and holiday refresher kind of look like? How do you make sure that you're spending your holiday really giving that yourself that time to breathe while still enjoying the festivities of this time period?
Oh my gosh, I think this year I'm one person, child, or whatever, that has always looked forward to December because of what you have said already. The itinerary, what is going to be done. I used to say with my friends that, okay, babe, by the 16th, you need to have your hair and your nails done. And before the 20th, you need to have scratched the surface. You need to not be in Gauteng. And that for me was an ideal holiday back then. But this year, for the first time ever, I remember telling a friend that, bro, like, even if we go nowhere, like, can we go nowhere? Because I know one thing my parents were complaining about was that I sleep too much. So I took this time to, like, sleep, I took this time to write and journal because I don't know when was the last time I did that. And also, binge watch. That's my ultimate relaxation. Binge watching with snacks, sleeping at any time that I desire. And obviously recalibrating because I was thinking to myself, okay, this whole year I had a somewhat okay year. The goods were good, the lows were low, but like for most of the year, I was out of touch with God. So that's what I also did in December. Tried to initiate praying every single day because I used to do that. And sometimes you wake up and you're late for school. You don't have time to do that. You wake up and you don't have, you end up not having time. And then when you look back, you're like, oh, maybe that's why certain things happened in my life is because I stopped the time of God. So during my December, my reset looks like chilling, sleeping whenever I want to, eating whatever the hell I want to. Like that's what my ultimate reset looks like. But now that you've asked me this question, I'm interested to know what's yours because you're also someone that comes off seemingly as a very busy person. So how do you wind down?
Honestly speaking, I think I struggle with it. And I think I struggled with it the beginning stages of holiday because obviously for me, I close off way earlier than everybody else because I don't have exams in the course that I'm doing. So from November,
Yeah.
I've been on holiday and the entirety of November, I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of this now. Like, can I go back to reality, Because I think I
Yeah.
struggle a lot with just sitting and not having something to do. And it made me realize that I have a lack of hobbies. And I even have a
Mm.
lack of motivation to do the hobbies that I know I enjoy doing. So, like, even like you're mentioning, journaling is something that I really enjoy and I find it very fulfilling for me to do. but I get so lazy with doing it.
Oh,
I'm like,
bro,
I'm in bed,
bro.
it's late, it's like 12 o'clock, I've got something on my mind, and I know I just need to write it out, but I'm so lazy to get up, go to my desk, sit down and write, So I just end
Yes.
up getting in this lazy zone. But recently, the past 2, 3 weeks, I feel like I've really been unwinding. And I'm agreeing heavily with what you're saying, the binge watching shows, but specifically like old school shows from like 2010, 2011 sort of
For
situation.
real.
Shows right now, I feel like they don't have enough episodes in a season for you to consider it a binge watch. But I think binge
Mhm.
watching shows is one of them. I've also been getting really heavily into like creating playlists for different moods. Um, because I think music is one of those things that I really enjoy and it really helps relax me. And there's nothing better to set a mood for a specific time than music for me. So really just getting playlists, making playlists. I've also been catching up with my friends quite a lot. I think just enjoying the simplicity of just being like, hey, do you want to go out for a cup of coffee? Not making it a big
Yeah.
thing where you need to get dressed up, you need to find an event to go to, you need to do something busy. So I think for me, my relaxing was just kind of finding things that give me peace and being okay with not being busy 24/7. Because I think for me, that's the mindset that I have. It's either I'm working like nonstop or I'm
Mm.
extremely bored and lazy. So this holiday for me was really just finding the balance between having things that keep me busy, but also having things that relax me at the same time. But obviously, because now the holiday season is ending, and this is something I've personally been thinking about, is how am I going to incorporate and continue on this sort of work-life balance when I
Yeah.
go back to varsity and when I start off new projects. So I wanted to know from you, how do you kind of find this work-life balance? Do you think you've ever had it before, or do you think it's something that after this relaxing period of the holidays, you're going to try incorporate a little bit more into your daily routine?
Oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever had to balance my work and my life at all because I think my life and where I feel like I'm most myself, most chilled and everything, and where I have the most fun, honestly, in those 8 hours is when I'm at school, you know? And then when I get home, it's just work. It's either work with chores, work with me looking after my siblings, work with me taking up after my schoolwork, So it's crazy and it's an unhealthy thing and a psychological thing as well, because I look at home as ah, like I never look at it as, oh, I'm going to relax. Because even when I sleep, I have parents that say, why are you sleeping? Na 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 na. And I honestly think I'm making your question much deeper, but I feel like home is not a relaxation area for me, but school is. So life has kind of balanced that out for me itself. Going into the new year, I don't foresee any joy, which is actually outrageous. Like I don't foresee any joy. I I have so much motivation and want to do so well, and not be here again next year because I don't have an institution to go to.
Mm.
Uh, so therefore, I'm kind of removing anything that might be exciting, fun, or whatever the case may be for the year that's to come. So I don't see balancing it, and in the past, it has kind of balanced for itself.
Hmm. I think it's really interesting how you mentioned that it kind of balances itself out, but I also resonate very heavily with what you're saying about kind of having so many plans for your life that you cannot see or you can't envision sort of the joyful moments that come into it. Because I think
Oh,
I'm somewhat similar in the way that I plan my life. It's kind of just like a steam train of this, that, and the other until I reach my goal. And I know you're going into matric right now. And I think for me, even going to matric, my mindset going into it was literally just how many distinctions I wanted to get at the end of the year, and the fact that
Yeah.
I wanted to get academic colors. And anything in between, I really didn't care much for. I was like, yes, it's going to be exciting, matric dance, like silly week, all that sort of stuff. It's going to be fun, whatever. But I didn't really have that expectation. And
Mm,
I think what you're saying is interesting in a way that I think for some people it might seem sad to be like, oh, you've just got so many plans in your life. You don't even think about the joy. Like, what's the point of living? I've always had people kind of ask me, well, what's the point of any of the plans that you're making if you can't envision yourself having fun doing it? But I think it's not even
yeah,
a thing of not having fun. It's just the plan is there to make you feel comforted. At least for me, I feel comfort and I feel joy in my plans coming true. But I think
oh my gosh,
my
we're
biggest
so
thing,
alike.
that's why I'm saying, like, what you're saying is resonating with me heavily. But I think, especially going into matric, for you and maybe for anyone else who's going into matric, anyone who's maybe even going to like the first year of varsity, I feel as though as you get older, the joy of things becomes far less the main point, if that makes sense. So, like, even
For
going
sure.
into December, yes, it's going to be a fun period, but compared to when you were like 10 years old, the main goal of December is not the fun the way it was when you were
Mm,
younger? But it's just one of those things where you're saying it naturally balances itself out. Even if you've got your plans, I feel like when you end up having joyful moments that spill out side of your plans, that's when you know
for
that it's
sure.
really a joyful moment because you can't really plan it to say, oh, I'm gonna have the best matric year of my life. I'm gonna have like a matric year that's out of High School Musical sort of situation. Like you can hope
Mm,
for it, but I think the biggest thing is that it's okay to have the plans, and if anything, the plans are good for you because you can't really go through life just not having an idea of what you want. So for you and for any of the listeners, if you have that sort of thing where you don't think that there's X, Y, and Z things that you're necessarily looking forward to, that's okay. Because I think if you know that there's things that you're reaching towards and the outcome of that is going to make you extremely happy, then that in itself is a reward, I believe.
for
Um,
sure.
but I think it's just really interesting how similar we are in the thought process of what we're expecting from this year. And I think we're touching a bit even on some exciting things, some interesting topics that we can continue on further around back to school and kind of like the expectations for this year, the academic year specifically. But before we get into that, I think we should cool off a little bit. In your wise words of like taking that time to relax, to refresh, we'll take a little refresher
Mm,
right now, listen to 10K by KB, and then when we come back, we can have a little bit more of a discussion around back to school and what that entails.
yeah. And we are back right here on Radio Veritas, the good news for a change. You're still tuned into the Catholic Family Hangout, the holiday program. However, the last segment. So hopefully you were able to catch us before it ended. But if you are unable to, you can catch us still on Spotify. But if you want to listen to Radio Veritas every time, as you should listen to us on Radio Veritas channel 870 or www.radioveritas.co.za. We just played you 10K by KB, and before the break, people that have been following, you know that we were speaking about literally our year as a whole. How exactly, listen, it was like reading a little girl's diary, how exactly we went through last year and how we're coming out on the better side or want to do things a little bit better. But obviously, now we need to start also getting back into reality because it's January, and some people like to say that January feels like a whole year. But I think I want to know from you, Luanda, how do you usually after, like we've said before, that you have had such a long break and you had finally gotten into the groove of, okay, now I can relax, I can chill, but now we're kind of soon we're gonna have to switch back into the work. So how is it for you to get back into that, like returning to work after a break? Like how do you prepare yourself?
This is a hard one because in previous years, I feel as though I've always attempted to have a plan. I've always attempted to have this idea of what me going back to school would look like. And then the first week of school, it kind of falls apart. But this year for me, I think how I look at going back to school, a lot of it is just trying to do as much as possible, right? Because for me, it is my
Yeah,
final year of varsity. And I think I'm kind of looking at it how you are potentially looking at matric, where it's one of those do or die kind of years where everything is really important.
mm,
I want to put everything on the line, make sure I get the best marks possible. Um, but I'm also looking at it as a time to really just find myself and also be okay with the whole idea of feeling lost as well, because I feel as though
yeah,
sometimes I have this plan and I have this idea of who I'm going to be in 5 years, who I'm going to be in 10 years, who I'm going to be at the end even of this year. And it becomes a little bit overwhelming. So I think for me, what I've really tried to do is, for one, integrate my hobbies into my work. So for me, I've started journaling a little bit more, but I focus more specifically on bullet journaling because it's kind of like having
yeah,
a planner, but it also allows you to create the planner yourself, like draw out everything, make it all pretty. And I feel like it's freeing for me because it's artistic, but it's also structured, which is a good
yeah,
balance for me. And I've also kind of just tried to look at my year as 3 months. And it's something that I found out about on social media where people try and look at their year as 90 days and you just set out your goals for the first 90 days, or rather, you set out your goals for the whole year and then you break it up into 90-day periods. And so for
mm,
me, my mindset going back to varsity is kind of just looking at this first little period, this first quarter of the year, and trying to maximize on all the things that I want to achieve, whether it's my marks at school, whether it's the projects that I want to experiment with outside of school. I've kind of just tried to jot down everything, make sure that I know what I want to achieve so that by the end of the 3 months, I can be okay. Like I've done what I needed to do. And I feel like then I'll be able to find that work-life balance. I've realized for me, if I don't schedule it or I don't have a clear idea of what I want to do, I'm unable to do it. So for me, it's really just been sitting down, reflecting on the mistakes of the previous years, and making a solid plan for this year. But
yeah.
what about you, Tandalotu? How are you going about rather, mentally preparing and even, I suppose, maybe even physically preparing for this back to school period?
I think it's actually quite ironic that you mentioned the planning and rebooting because I'm also someone that has this is actually a real life realization actually that I'm also someone who plans extremely because I want to at least know that they say you plan but God decides, but I want to know that I had at least some sort of autonomy on how my year goes. But I think another thing that's been making me very scared, and I realized this just listening to you, very scared of the year that I'm going into, afraid but motivated, is because I've been capturing it all into one. So this whole year, for me, in my head, it basically is Term 1 prelims finals. That's the only thing that is going into my head. And because I know what unmotivated person I can be sometimes, what a lazy person I can be sometimes, I've already applied for things like tutoring when the year hasn't even begun. So I'm actually realizing that, I think it's better if I do what you've said, is just to cut my year up into syllables. What do I want to achieve in term one? In term one, I want to ensure that, for example, I get my locker situation sorted out. I want to ensure that I am on the ball in terms of everything school, meaning I'm not falling behind at all. And since there's no activities and extramurals that I'm going to be doing, this is where I want to ensure that, because my friends are in productions, that I watch and support as much as I can. But that's all for now. And then that's why there's also holidays so that I can recalibrate, replan for the second term. So you've actually made me realize that I've kind of been thinking about this the wrong way, and that's why I've kind of been a bit um clogged up in my brain. But then it makes me ask, like, what what's one thing you do mentally to prepare for your first day back at school? And I'll give you mine first. I There's nothing that I do mentally besides praying, I think. Because I'm also someone that overthinks like so much. So already on the car ride to school, I'm already thinking of the conversations I'm gonna have with my friends when we get there. The teachers that have left, how assembly is gonna be like because it's the first one of the year, how everyone's gonna be taking life so seriously. Like I have no actual proper way of preparing mentally, just besides praying and just leaving it in God's hands. So I want to know, how do you mentally prepare for whatever comes from the first day back, when everyone misses each other and all.
I think I'm kind of similar to you, in the sense of overthinking. I remember like my first day, before my first day of grade eight, I knew that grade eight was going to be the year where like a lot of people were joining the school. And for like a full on week, I was overcome with like crippling anxiety to the point where just even eating was really hard for me. So I feel as though after that experience, I don't really do much to mentally prepare for the first day back. If anything, I try not think about it as much as possible until it comes. Yes, I do prepare. I pack all my stuff. I make sure that I've got everything ready. But other than that, I really just try to not think about it, right? I think about the year as a whole, but I try not think about the start of it because I don't know why, but I feel like kind of like you're saying this, it's just like this impending fear of what this is going to be, you know? And I think for me,
Yeah,
the start of something is always really important. It's always kind of really symbolic. But then I put so much weight on the first day or the first week. And it comes to the point where, like, if the first day back, I'm not as organized as I thought I was going to be, then I feel as though the whole year is thrown off because I'm like, oh, well, I stuffed up the first day. What's the point in trying for the rest of the year, you know? So for me, I kind of
mm,
try to have the goals that I have for the rest of the year in my mind. But as for what it comes for the first day, I just try and let it be. And a lot of it is just soaking up whatever happens, you know, because the first day of school, the first day of work, the first day of varsity, I feel, is you don't really know what's going to happen. It's one of those
yeah,
you might not even necessarily have your curriculum, you might not know exactly what you're doing yet. In my case, I haven't even picked my elective for next year. We haven't even been briefed on how that's going to go. So for me, the first
mm,
day back is like one of those things where it's so far out of my control that I'm like, I'm just going to get back and I'm just going to try and embrace being back for the first time, for the last time for me, just being with my friends, trying to take in as much information as they're giving me. And then after the first day, I think then that's when I can properly sit down and be like, okay, now I can mentally prepare for the term to come. Because other than that, everything is kind of out of your control. But it makes me think about something that I've seen a bit online. Um, and we talked a little bit about creating vision boards last week.
yeah,
And I've seen online, and it's a bit tricky for me, and that's why I'm asking you this question. I've seen online people obviously always promoting vision boards and being like, vision boards are magical, you know, but I feel as though sometimes people take it to the extremes where they just like, I put it on my vision board and I forgot about it and it magically came true. So I wanted to know from you, do you really believe in that sort of thing where you just kind of think about something and it magically happens? Or do you really think that you need a structured plan, a structured way for things to go? Because you did even mention that obviously there's your plan and there's God's plan. And we can
mm,
obviously look at it and say, oh, wow, I prayed about this like 2 years ago and I forgot about it and now it's happening and it's God's plan and it's God's way. But do you think that we should kind of take that as if it's meant to be, it will be, and leave it at that when it comes to everything, you know, kind of just believe that God will make it happen in everything? Or do you think that it is a combination of belief in God, but also you putting in the work for it? Because I feel like sometimes a lot of people try and make it seem as though everything will just magically fall into place, as if you
yeah.
haven't also been working with God to make it happen. So, what do you think about that?
I honestly feel like first and foremost, the your faith in God needs to be. absolutely big. And I feel like right now I'm saying something that has been repeated. That's why my voice sounds like this. But I feel like having have putting full trust in God is your first step before you even create the vision board. For me, for example, obviously I'm gonna speak from the level that I'm at. Other vision boards I've seen, this person has a car and. But the vision board that I create is a vision board of things that are attainable the with discipline and my faith in God. What I mean by this is I do subjects, obviously. And for example, if in business I am normally someone who gets an average of 65. And like you have said, with my planning and me doing more, I want to move to a 75. It is attainable. I have teachers, I can pray, I have textbooks, there's the internet. It's attainable. It's something that can happen. It becomes then something different when people say God just makes it happen or whatever. It's when, for example, people situations that South Africans and people find themselves in is when you're unemployed but your vision board has a car. Now, this can happen. It's not out of the ordinary that you might not get a car, but I feel for me it either does one of the two. It then allows someone to be more um courageous about how they go about their career or just the daily things of their lives. So for example, if you're unemployed and you put a car on your vision board, that means every day you're actively working times two to ensure that that is attainable. Unlike someone who already has a job but has a car on their vision board, maybe their only obstacle is the fact that they're the breadwinner at home. That person then needs to financially strategize on how they're going to be able to get that car and be sustainable in it while still making sure that at home they are good and well. So I feel like there is no such a thing as a vision, like as something on your vision board just happening. Obviously, when the time is right, the Lord will make it happen. And if, for example, you don't get that car in that year, it will come. But I'm saying you just need to put yourself in a position where you are always ready. So a vision board is like a map. If we're starting a game and what do they call those things? A hunt, for example, maybe a hunt, and we're in different teams. Everyone is their own team as an individual. Your vision board is your map on how you plan to get there based on your current situation. So that's personally how I look at vision boards, and I do 100% recommend them. I do also, again, like I said in the beginning, that recommend that on your vision board you put something that is attainable. I'm not saying don't dream big, but I'm just saying dream within your means and how disciplined you can be, you know? So even when I took down my vision board at the beginning of this year, I had achieved literally, I think, because I had 10 things on my vision board, I had achieved seven of them, and the others, it was just because of maybe lack of opportunity or the fact that I focused too much on school. I stopped going to auditions, just things like that. But things that are within your means and things can definitely happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think what you're saying is important because obviously, as I keep mentioning, it's one of those things where social media is kind of just glorified
Yeah.
this like overnight success mentality, which
Mm,
obviously is something that we can say is possible to a certain extent. But like you're saying, it's one of those things where to us, it seems as though it's an overnight success. You just magically, this all came true. But obviously, the whole
mm,
mindset is that behind that, you should still have your own plan. You are still working on this, and it might take you a year, like you're saying, it might take you a couple of years. But as long as you know that this is something that you're working towards, it will eventually come true. And it is, like you're saying, a combination of your discipline, a combination of your planning, and a combination of just
mm,
trusting in God. And I think there's no better song that embodies the spirit of just trusting in God and trusting in his plan and his vision. Then Look at God by Corey Hawthorne. So we'll listen to that right now. And when we come back, we'll do our last ever reflection of the holiday program. And welcome back. You're still tuned into the Catholic Family Hangout with the Madinani family, presented by myself, Luyanda Tema. Of course, you are listening to the Catholic Family Hangout holiday program specifically, and you are either listening to us on the DSTV channel 870, the Radio Veritas app, or streaming us live at www.radioveritas.co.za. We just played you Look at God by Corey Hawthorne. And before that, we were having a bit of a conversation around mentally preparing for first day back at school, even touching a little bit further on vision boards, the importance of vision boards, the importance of planning ahead. And it's really interesting that we're having this conversation because obviously today is the last ever episode of the holiday program. And it makes me think of a time when this was in itself part of our plans, right? Because yes, the holiday program kind of for the listeners, it pops up just a week or two into December, and it seems like something that just magically came together. But obviously, the holiday program
Mm,
is something that we've been talking over for a few months, and it's something that we worked really hard on. And I think it's been a wonderful experience to be a part of this monumental thing that we've done for the first time ever. And obviously, we know that this is the reflection time. This is the time where we look back at the episode that we've just had, but also on the program as a whole. And this, as I'm saying, is something that we've never done before. This is something that has happened for the first time ever. And it's been a truly magical experience, if I do say so myself. It's something where I feel as though I've learned a lot about my faith, but I've even enjoyed very heavily the conversations that I've been having with Tandolotu and Gabelo about life and about our plans for the holidays, our plans for the new year.
yeah.
And Tandolotu, I just wanted to know from you, what has been some of the highlights for this program for you?
Oh my gosh, I think one of them is firstly having Cabello on the show. I think she is obviously someone that is incredibly hard to reach, but has a talent for, or just some sort of aspiration for presenting. So I think she was also very grateful for the time that she was here. And I also realized something that I didn't know, that my cousin is to some extent a natural. So I think that was my first highlight. My second one was being able to communicate, even if I couldn't see them. But the my other fellow colleagues that had been in other seasons, I think it was great to feel their energy and the type of, and imagine the type of seasons they probably poured out to the listeners. So I think that was one of the episodes that's definitely on my highlights. But another one was the first ever one we had. Please remind me of the priest we had. I think I forgot.
I believe it was Father Putti.
Yes. So, oh my gosh, that conversation with Father Putti still rings in my mind till today. And obviously, if I had forgotten everything else that he had said, I think mostly during the festive season, even wishing people a Merry Christmas, I removed the commercialization of, the day Christmas and people forgetting what it actually is. And I realized how much I was also in that, group of people that would literally forget why we celebrate Christmas. And once I was there, I realized how many other people do it unintendedly. So I think moving forward, most definitely, like it's not happy holidays, it's have a blessed Merry Christmas. I think that's how I wished people a Merry Christmas during the year. But yeah, that is one that stood out for me the most. And hopefully, um next year this time there shall be another holiday program.
Yeah, no, definitely. We are hoping that it does happen. And obviously, it will be a part of the Catholic Family Hangout plans for the year. Because obviously, like we're mentioning, this is sort of the season of planning, the season of looking ahead to the year to come. And obviously, because we are wrapping up the holiday program, it means that the listeners will not be hearing from you for a little while. So, just to give us a bit of an idea, if you're comfortable with sharing, what are some
Yeah.
of the things that you are excited for this year? If somebody were to ask you, Tanilotu, what is this year about for you? What is like, if you were to look at it as kind of like a book or a movie, and you had to
Mm.
describe it in a few years, in a few words rather, what would 2025 be for you, and what do you kind of have planned for it?
Definitely me just getting more into my adulting, taking charge of my adulting and change, because something I've been so afraid of, taking initiative of my career, that's literally going to determine my life for the rest of my life. But most importantly, and something I'm very excited about, is that we are still very much going to be on the Catholic Family Hangout team or family with my girl Luyanda, and I will be the host for the shows, and I'm so excited to meet other families and their energies and whatever else they have to bring, while working hand in hand with my girl Luanda, and learning as much as I can from her, and learning as much as I can from other families as well. I'm so excited, you know. I think I mentioned when we were still doing the family Catholic hangout with Sibo and Ponsing that I don't see myself as a people's person, but it is very weird to find myself in a place where I'm very excited to meet other potential amazing presenters in the future, or just people that want to spread the word of God using this platform. So yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's the listeners are very lucky to have you continuing on with them and have you with them every Saturday, continuing on this hangout session that we've got, obviously. And I think it's just again, I just would like to say thank you to you and even to Gabelo for joining on, for making this not only a historical, a monumental sort of season, but also something where there's been a lot that I take away. And obviously, like
Yeah.
mentioning, if the listeners, if you've missed any of the episodes, if you've missed out on some of today's episode, we do upload every single episode of the Catholic Family Hangout, starting from season 4, episode 1, on our Spotify channel. So you can either search up Catholic Family Hangout on Spotify, or you can even go to our Instagram page at Catholic Family Hangout, and you can find all the details if you'd like to keep up to date with us, keep up to date with anything that's coming up, what we've been doing, anything from the past, anything from the present, anything coming in the future. You can go and follow us there on Catholic Family Hangout. And as Tandalotu is mentioning, we're obviously looking towards the seasons ahead. So if you or your family would like to audition, you can keep up to date with us, like I'm saying, on our Instagram page at Catholic Family Hangout, or even on the Radio Veritas Instagram page. We'll be posting all the information for auditions very, very soon. But unfortunately, we have reached the end of the holiday program with the Madinane family. It has been a
Mm.
beautiful time. And I think there was no better family to end off 2024 with and start off 2025 with. So again, thank you to you guys for making this
Yeah.
possible. But unfortunately, for the last time, from myself, Luyanda,
And for the not last time, I'm joking from myself, Zandulet Martinane, aka your girl Madi. Stay strong, be blessed.
have a blessed day ahead and tune in again, same time, same place on your favorite Catholic family hangout spot.